The darkness pressed in from all sides, thick and suffocating. Brack could hear the whimpering of the younger cubs behind him, their bioluminescent spots flickering weakly with fear. He was only 12 cycles old himself, barely past his own cub stage, but he was the oldest. That made him responsible. "Stay quiet," he whispered in his native tongue, his 4 ears swiveling to catch any sound from the tunnel entrance. They might pass by, but even as he spoke, Brack knew it was a lie. The Korthan death squads didn't pass by anything. They were thorough, methodical, and they had herded Brack's group into this collapsed maintenance tunnel deliberately, like predators driving prey into a canyon with no exit. Through the narrow gap at the tunnel's mouth, Brack could see the shadows of Korthan soldiers moving across the ruined cityscape. Their armor clicked and whirred, and their guttural voices carried the casual tone of hunters who knew their quarry had nowhere to run. There were 8 cubs total. The youngest was barely 4 cycles old, still learning to speak properly. When the invasion sirens had sounded, Brack had been at the youth center, helping with the little ones. The adults had rushed them toward the evacuation tunnels, but a Korthan artillery strike had collapsed the main route. In the chaos and fire, Brack had grabbed everyone he could and run. Now they were here, trapped, and the Korthans were coming. "Brack," whispered Sina, one of the middle cubs, her voice trembling. "I don't want to die." "We're not going to die," Brack said, trying to sound brave. His hand instinctively went to the small survival knife on his belt, a ceremonial blade given to him when he completed his first hunt. Against armored Korthan warriors, it was worthless. The shadows at the tunnel entrance grew larger. Brack heard the distinctive hum of a Korthan scanner. They'd found them. "Everyone get back," Brack hissed, positioning himself between the cubs and the entrance. His heart hammered in his chest. At least he could buy them a few more seconds. Maybe give the little ones a chance too. The explosion was deafening, but it didn't come from the tunnel entrance. It came from above, behind the Korthan position. The shockwave rattled loose debris from the tunnel ceiling, and suddenly the night lit up with weapons fire, but not Korthan weapons. These sounds were different, sharper, more rapid. Through the tunnel opening, Brack saw something impossible: that a single figure dropped from a damaged building's second floor, landing in a crouch that should have shattered legs but didn't. The figure rose, and Brack's breath caught. It was humanoid, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too lean, wearing armor that seemed cobbled together from a dozen different sources. In its hands was a weapon that spat fire and thunder. A human. Brack had only seen them in broadcasts. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, primitives who'd barely achieved faster-than-light travel a generation ago. They had no real military to speak of, no territory worth defending. When the Korthan invasion came, everyone assumed the humans would be swept aside like dust. But this human was a storm. Avon Cole moved like liquid violence. His rifle, primitive by galactic standards, using chemical propellants instead of plasma, barked continuously. 3 Korthan soldiers fell before they could react. A 4th raised his weapon, but Avon was already moving, sliding behind a chunk of rubble. A Korthan plasma bolt superheated the air where he'd been standing a fraction of a second before Avon's rifle appeared over the rubble's edge, firing in controlled bursts. Another Korthan fell. "Contact!" One of the Korthans roared in trade tongue. "Single hostile. Terran designation. Just one." The squad leader laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Kill it quickly. We have cubs to flush out." They were talking about Brack and the others. The human had heard. What happened next would be burned into Brack's memory forever. Avon Cole stood up from behind cover. Not taking cover, standing. A Korthan plasma bolt seared past his shoulder, burning through his makeshift armor. He didn't flinch. He raised a small cylinder and threw it with inhuman precision. The Korthan squad leader had time to shout a warning before the grenade detonated, and suddenly the street was full of smoke and flame. The human charged. Through the smoke, Brack saw flashes of movement. Avon's rifle ran dry, and he simply dropped it, drawing a long blade from his back. It was crude, made of simple steel, nothing like the molecular-edged weapons the Korthans carried. It shouldn't have been able to cut through their armor, but Avon Cole didn't try to cut through the armor. He drove the blade through gaps, neck seals, joint connections, the soft points every armor had. He fought like someone who'd studied Korthan equipment manuals and knew every weakness. Each movement was brutally efficient. A Korthan tried to grab him. Avon broke the warrior's arm with a strike that made Brack wince even from the tunnel. Another swung a powered mace. Avon ducked under it, came up inside the Corthan's guard, and drove his blade up through the underside of the helmet. In less than a minute, 6 Corthan soldiers lay dead or dying. The last one ran. Avon let him go, breathing hard. For a moment, he just stood there, silhouetted against the burning city. Then he turned toward the tunnel, and Brack saw his face for the first time. Humans were supposed to be soft, weak. Their homeworld had light gravity, thin predators, easy living. But Avon Cole's eyes held something that transcended biology. It was the look of someone who decided that running away was no longer an option. Is anyone hurt in there? Avon called out in heavily accented but understandable trade tongue. Brack found his voice. We're okay. You're human. Guilty as charged. Avon approached the tunnel entrance slowly, hands visible. I'm Avon Cole, Terran Volunteer Corps. I'm going to get you kids out of here. There's 8 of us, Brack said. The little ones are scared. That's okay. Being scared means you're smart. Avon knelt at the tunnel entrance, and Brack could see that despite his calm voice, the human was bleeding from multiple wounds. My ship's about 2 kilometers north. It's a rough run, but I've got clear corridors mapped. Can you all walk? Yes, but Brack hesitated. Why? Why would you risk this? We're not your people. Earth isn't even part of our alliance. Avon was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, and it was the saddest expression Brack had ever seen. Back on Earth, we've got a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Maybe we humans aren't advanced. Maybe we don't have your tech or your weapons or your fancy ships. He extended his hand toward the tunnel. But we're real good at refusing to do nothing. Brack took the human's hand. It was warm, steady, and covered in blood, both Corthan and human. Besides, Avon added as he helped the first cubs out of the tunnel, where I come from, we've got a rule about kids. Doesn't matter whose kids they are. You don't let anything happen to them. Not if you can stop it. 2 hours later, all 8 cubs were aboard Avon's battered corvette, heading toward friendly lines. Avon sat in the pilot's seat, running on stims and stubbornness, his wounds hastily bandaged. Brack sat in the co-pilot's chair, watching him. Will there be more humans like you? Brack asked. Avon glanced at him, then back at the stars. Millions of us signed up when we heard what the Corthans were doing to civilians. We might not have your experience or your equipment, but we've got something else. What's that? We're too stupid to know when we're supposed to give up. Avon grinned. And we really don't like bullies. Behind them, the younger cubs were finally sleeping, safe for the first time in days. And Brack understood something that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Humanity had arrived, and they brought their rules with them.